Right, welcome to another stream. Today I'll be studying extra models and then I'll go on to response codes or status codes. Okay, yeah, so let's get started with the pretty cool stuff. Yeah, it's a Friday and yeah, I actually have a meeting in an hour. I wish I had really enough time. I wanted to do this Friday stream for almost 2 hours and cover a lot, but let me get started. So yeah, extra models. You're saying continuing with the previous example, it will be common to have more than one related model. Which previous example from what we studied yesterday, if we open this, okay, and then we come here and I scroll to the bottom, okay, the example we've been dealing with, okay, this having item, okay, and the one that we're above, okay, whereby you need to use more than one model. In other words, models which are related. So yeah, I don't want to go back there to waste time for those who followed the stream yesterday. So in case you need that, you can simply go and watch the stream of yesterday or simply read the documentation for yourself. Okay. So it says, continuing with the previous example, it will be common to have more than one related model. This is especially the case for user models because, number one, the input model needs to be able to have a password. The output model does not have a password. Database model probably need to have a hashed password. Okay. So if I maybe quickly open this and show you, you see, where is that? Yes, you see the input. This is user in, which is the model used for input, has a password. Okay, includes a password and all these fields. Why? Because of inheritance. Then the one which is the output model has only these fields, which does not include the password. So this is what they did. So I'll close this, continue, and now read. They say there's a danger. Say never store users plain text passwords or store a secure hash that you can then verify. They're saying if you don't know, you will learn what a password hash is in security chapters. And actually, security is just right here. Okay, we shall study that right here. And I can't wait for that. Okay, so yeah, the main point, and I'm sure any of you who is here who has done backend development in the past, you know this. Okay, those who are new, never do that, and we shall see how to do it in FastAPI. So I'll go on to the next title. They're saying multiple models. They're saying here's a general idea of how the models could look like with their password fields and the places where they are used. So from FastAPI, they import FastAPI. From Pydantic, they import base model and email str. This is a special type that can give you email validation. They put an instance of FastAPI. Then they have two Pydantic base models. How do I know that they're Pydantic base models? Because they inherit from base model. Okay, so user in has a name, which is a string required, a password, which is a string and required, email, which is an email str and required, full name, which can be a string or none. The default value is none, which means it can be optional. User out has a username, email, and full name. User in DB has these three, okay? Excuse me. Which has a username, hashed password, email, full name, okay? So the difference is that the input, okay, when a person is importing their data, we expect them to give us their password. But when we're giving them an output, there should be no password. But when we are saving it in the database, days, a password that hashed. That's the difference. Then there's a function here called fake password hasher, takes in a raw password, and then simply returns a string, adding super secret to raw password. But of course, it is much more complex than this. This is just a way of doing an example, just to drive the point home that you must hash your password, but this is not actually safe, okay? So here we have fake save user, takes in the user input and gets the hash password from this function, fake password hasher. And they say user in DB. They use user in DB, okay, which is this one, okay. And then they pass in user in to dict. They convert to a dictionary, okay. And this double asterisk helps you to, excuse me, sorry about that, helps you to pass the data, okay, as key value pairs, okay, dictionary, in other words. Then they pass the hash password, then they simply print that the user has been saved, then they return user in DB, and then they have a post request, okay, to slash user, the response model out. So we learned about this yesterday. You can watch the video yesterday. So the response model out means the response model will be of type user out, which is this Pydantic model. Okay, username, email, full name without password. Then the input will be the user in, which is this one. Okay, it has a username, a password, email, and full name. Then the user saved equals to fake underscore save user, which is this, okay, which does the hashing, converts it to a user in DB instance, and then simply returns it, and they return the saved user. Pretty simple. Okay, we can test this in the using the browsable documentation. I paste this code. I come. Wow, give me the URLs, bro. I want to see. Yeah, this is what I want. Then I can come to slash docs like this. If I come here, we see no parameters. See in the request body, we need the password. So, but in the response, you see, we shall get no password. So let me try it out. I say try out. Okay, I can try with these values. Okay, you see, we get an internal, where is internal server error. So what has happened? Okay, they say user saved is not defined. Did you mean user saved? Yeah, I added an S. We're trying to save the file. So I'll execute again. And there you are. You see our response, username, an email, and a full name without the password. I want to show you something. If I put an invalid email and execute, okay, we get a 422. And look at the message. It said value is not value is not a valid email address. An email address must have an @ sign. Okay, just wanted to show you that. So if I execute after putting it back, you see it works. Okay, so yeah, I think I get the point here. This makes perfect sense to me. Using multiple models, one is for input, one is for output, one is for saving to the database. Okay, yeah, pretty easy. And now I see how they are trying to bring a concept, whereby in your asynchronous path declaration, path operation function, you can have a function that is making calls to other functions. Okay, yeah, pretty interesting. And this actually the normal flow in your route function like this. You'd call something like another service function to do the database operation for us, so that we have it do the saving, and we just get the data back. Pretty nice, pretty nice. Yeah, let me go back and continue with this awesome documentation. Okay, so for those who have Python 3.8 and below, yeah, go and check it out. But the difference will be this union. Okay, so they have some info here. They're saying in Pydantic version 1, the method was called to dict. It was deprecated but still supported in Pydantic v2 and renamed to model.dump. The examples here used to dict for compatibility with Pydantic version 1, but you should use model underscore dump instead if you can use Pydantic version 2. Yeah, I think that is why here, see, we have this, what do I call it? A strike through, okay, on to dict. If I hover over it, you see they say the method dict in class-based model is deprecated. The dict method is deprecated using model dump instead. So I should just say dot model underscore dump, like that. So you see it has not been crossed out, and the output will be the same. We can go back to documentation and execute it. We test the endpoint. You see we get exactly the same thing. Okay, so they're saying about this. Okay, they're trying to explain this, but I think they explained it earlier, either in the 50th, between the 50th to the 11th stream that we had. They explained this in detail, if you remember. Okay, and this the asterisk. If you're a Python developer, there's a 99% chance that you actually know this. But let's read on. They're saying Pydantics the to dict. Okay, this is something by saying by Pydantic. But I think Python has something with underscore underscore dict and underscore underscore. But let me not go into that. So they're saying user in is a Pydantic model of class user in, which is this. Okay, user in, the type of user in is the Pydantic model user in. Then they're saying Pydantic models have a dict method that returns a dict with the model's data. Okay, in other words, at this point, maybe let me go through the code. Relate between the code and the documentation. Reduce this slightly. Ways to dict. Okay, this method, okay, that changes it to a dictionary. Okay, ideally we have to dict, but remember they told us they change it to model dumped. Okay, this changes user in, which is a Pydantic model, okay, to a dictionary. Okay, changes it to a dict. But right now in newer version they call it model dump. And if I hover, you see I've hovered over this, okay, and it shows me the implementation of model dump. If you look at the return type, is a dictionary. Okay, say a dict. It's a dict whose key is a string and the value can be anything. So I think that makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you too. And by the way, if I say anything that is odd, if maybe I've missed out on something, feel free to tell me in the chat to so I know that yeah, you can help me, okay, to get better. I'm curious to know where you guys actually watching from. Okay, I know some people like Linus and whatever, but some of you might be new people. Actually, I've had people from India. There's one visit from Pakistan. Yeah, very very nice to see many of you interested in this nice framework. So they're saying if we create a Pydantic object user in like this, user in having a username, John, password, this email, that, and then we call user dict equals to user in.dict. We now have a dictionary. We now have a dict with the data in the variable user dict. It's a dict instead of Pydantic model object. Okay, so it's in what you're saying, it's a dictionary. And they're saying, and if we call print user dict, we'll get a Python dict like this. Of course, this makes sense. Okay. And if I run this, okay, if I run this, I wanted just to show you something that actually you can see the print statements by, you see this, you see user saved, not really, it is there from this. Okay, so if we printed this, okay, user dict, we would get a dictionary like this. Let me show you. Come here and print user in underscore dot dict and save. Okay, and then I get here and execute, then come back here. You see, we get a dictionary. Here it is. Okay, and the same applies with also model dump. Okay, which replaced user dict. So if I come here, execute, get back here, you see, we get the same thing. As simple as that. So the goal is to return a dictionary. So they're saying unpacking a dict. Okay, they're saying if we take a dict like user dict and pass it to a function or class with double asterisk user dict, Python will unpack it. Then they're saying it will pass the keys and values of the user dict directly as key value arguments. And this is just a Python. You'd expect this to work, okay, in Python. So they're saying, so continuing with the user dict from above, writing user in DB, this double asterisk, okay, or double stars, user dict would result in something equivalent to user in DB user name equals to John, password equals secret, email equals to John Doe. In other words, it picks every value from the dictionary, every key and value, and gives them as key value arguments. Okay, remember our Python. We have types of arguments in Python. We have positional arguments. Okay, and another type of argument is key value arguments. So yeah, that is what these double asterisks help you. Okay, so instead of doing something like this, assuming, let me copy this dictionary. So remember, user in.dump, user in.model dump, or user in.dict gives you something like this. Okay, let's say dict. Let me say dict just like that is equals to that. Okay, so instead of doing something like this, whereby you call user in DB, okay, like this, then now you have to do something like this. Okay, you have to say dict, okay, dict username. Okay, remember you have to pass key value pairs. Dict username, okay, equals to, you have, remember they have to be key value pairs. Okay, so you have to say username rather. So let me show you what I want to achieve. Okay, but my head is being slow today. Key value pairs. So we have to say username is equals to dict username. That's the first one. Okay, what they saying? They're saying username is not defined. It's supposed to be like this, dict username. Okay, then after that we have to say password, okay, equals to dict password. After that, we shall also have to go for email. Let me use autocomplete from AI. Okay, like that. So let me put them on the next line so you can see them easily, including full name. Okay, this is what we shall do. This is how you pass. You'd pass the key value pairs from the dictionary to this. Remember, we get a dictionary by saying user in.model dump. But then this is a lot of code. So the easiest way to do it is by saying user in DB double asterisk dict, like that. So this is the same as this. The same goal, same thing. So let's continue. You're saying a Pydantic model from contents of another. As in the example above, we got a user dict from user.dict. This code, okay, saying user dict equals to user.dict, user in that, okay, in other words, converting the Pydantic model to a dictionary, then unpacking the values, okay, to in DB, and they're saying this would be equivalent to doing this. Yeah, the same thing. They're saying because user in dict is a dict, and then we make Python unpack it by passing it to user in DB prefixed with double asterisks. Okay, so we get a Pydantic model from the data in another Pydantic model. Yes, because user in DB is also a Pydantic model. So we're getting data from user in, which is a Pydantic model, to user in DB, which is another Pydantic model. So they're saying unpacking a dict and extra words. So they're saying, and then adding the extra keyword argument, hashed password equals a hash password, like in user DB, that hashed password equals to hashed password, ends up being like, actually what I just showed you, username equals to that, password equals to the password in the dictionary, email equals to the email in the dictionary, full name equals to the full name in the dictionary, and hashed password equals to hashed password. Pretty simple. Actually see nothing complex about this. And then after that, I go to the supporting additional functions, fake password hasher, and fake save user. I just dim a possible flow of the data, but they are of course not providing any real security. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier. So they're saying reduce duplication. They're saying reducing code duplication is one of the core ideas in FastAPI, as code duplication increments the chances of bugs, security issues, code desynchronization issues when you update in one place but not in others. All these models are all sharing a lot of data and duplicating attribute names and types. We could do better. We can declare a user-based model that serves as a base for our other models, and then we can make subclasses of that model that inherit its attributes, type declarations and validations. Okay. See, they're saying all the data conversion, validation, documentation, etc. will work as normal. That way we can declare just the differences between the models with plain text, with hashed password, and without a password. Okay, so let's see that. So they're saying FastAPI imported, base model, email STL imported, FastAPI again imported. We have user base from base model. Okay, so this time now user base has an username, an email, and full name. Okay, so if you look at up here, what they're trying to explain, where is that? Here, you see, user in, user out, user in DB, all have similar data. This duplication. We have a username here, username here, username here. We have a password here, hash password here. We have an email, email, email. Full. So username, email, and full name are duplicated everywhere. Okay. So what they say here, simply have one which has in common. So this is the user base model, the user base, which has everything in common. Then user in, which requires a password, okay, combines everything here plus password. How does this combine? By via inheritance. You see, user in is inheriting user base, which is this one. So user in technically has all this. And FastAPI, the system FastAPI will still give you the validation, conversion, documentation. Then user out simply has the same fields as user base. Okay, so they say user base, simply inherit and use pass to make it empty. Then user in DB has all the same fields with user base, but only hash password. How do they achieve that? By inheriting. So all these inherit what is common here. And then individually they can add or not add anything. Yeah, so that's what they have. These other functions are all the same. So they're saying union or any of. Okay. You can declare a response to be union of two or more types. That means the response will be any of them. It will be defined in OpenAPI with any of. Okay. So OpenAPI defines returning two or more types using any of. So they're saying to do that, use the standard Python typing.union from the typing module. So they're saying when defining a union, include the most specific type first, followed by the less specific type. In the example below, the most specific plain item comes before car item in union plain item car item. Let's see. Okay, the import union. Okay, Python 3.10 plus. Okay, then they have this the car item having a which inherits from base item, meaning car item is made up of description and type. Okay, then they just change the type to car. Plain item is also made of a base item, meaning it has a description also, but the type value changes to plain and has another extra attribute, size. Okay, then they have here some dummy data in the dictionary of dictionaries, but what we want is this. Okay, when you're specifying the response type, so you say the response model should look like this, meaning it can either be a plain item or a car item. And in this case, plain item is the most specific. So it has to come before car item. Nice. Okay. I want to prove this statement. They're saying it will be defined in OpenAPI with any of. So I'll copy, come here, remove this, paste, come back, refresh, cancel this, open. Okay. I want to see where is that any of? Is it only in the schema and not in the UI? Okay, I can't see that any of here. I can't. Maybe I didn't understand it. If you understood it, let me know. So I will again scroll. They say union in Python 3.0. In this example, we pass union plain car item as the value of the argument response model. Okay, we have seen that, which is simply this. Because we are passing it as a value to an argument, instead of putting it in a type annotation, we have to use union even in Python 3.10. Why? Because we are passing it as a value. So we cannot, oh yeah, makes sense. We cannot do the other way. The saying if it was a type annotation, we could have used the vertical bar like this. Yeah, this vertical bar makes it much easier. But they're saying because it's not Python 3.10, suppose it's Python 3.10, but it's a value to an argument, we have to use union. So they're saying, but if we put in the assignment, we would get an error because Python would try to perform an invalidation operation between plain item and car item instead of interpreting that as a type annotation. Okay, so if I can copy this, maybe I can quickly show you. Maybe copy this, okay? I explain what I've understood. So this is what I understand, okay? They say this is okay, okay? If this is okay, but here we cannot do this, okay? We cannot do something like this. We cannot write the union like this, okay? The modern way, okay? This would cause issues, okay? Because it will, Python will look at it as assigning a value. So this would fail. But if we did this instead, if I copy this, okay, remove this response model, and then come here, okay, add it like this would be fine. That's the summary of the whole thing. But because of how editors and maybe MyPy would try to disturb you, the best approach would be to use response model, okay? Doing this achieves this same purpose. Okay, so remove that. Come on. Looks like I've lost my code. This is what I'm trying to build. I'll show you very soon. Okay, let's go on. Okay, they've explained that. So yeah, next up, list of models. They're saying the same way you can declare responses of lists of objects. They're saying for that, use the standard Python typing.list or just list in Python 3.9 and above. Okay, which is this. Okay, meaning here I can simply come and say I am returning a list of plain items like this. Come on, I hate autocomplete for these kind of things. Okay, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. A list of plain items or a list of cat items. Okay, like that. Is it cat item? Cat item, not cat. Okay, so go to the next one. They say response with arbitrary dict. They're saying you can also declare a response using plain arbitrary dict, declaring just the type of the keys and values without using a Pydantic model. Okay, so saying this is useful if you know the valid field attribute names that would be needed for a Pydantic model beforehand. In this case, you can use typing.dict in Python 3.9 and above. Okay, this one here. Okay, meaning you're sure that the dictionary is going to have strings, keys, which are strings, and the values are floats. You see, this is useful if you don't know. If you don't know the valid field or attribute names. Okay, so generalizing that floats, whatever. But I don't know why. Right now I'm thinking about a use case of this. But anyway, let me not burn my head. when the time comes, I guess I'll it's important to know because you never know, you can run into a case where you need this. Okay. I want to see I want to see how it appears in the documentation. So no parameters. Okay. Example value, additional prop 1, 2. Okay. Wow. Interesting. Let's try it out. We execute, what happens? Okay, we get full bar. Okay, expected. Not bad. But yeah, I can't wait to see where I apply this kind of stuff. So let me move on. The thing, okay, I think we're at the end, the thing recap, use Pydantic models and inherit freely for each use. You don't need to have a single data model per entity if that entity must be able to have different states, as the case with the user entity, with a state including password, hash password, or no password. Yeah, so in other words, we can use inheritance to either eliminate, combine, like we have seen, to include an attribute, work with an attribute, or add specific attributes. So we can use inheritance and then we override. All right, so you can use multiple Pydantic models and inherit freely for each case, just like we have seen. Don't have to read that again and again. Let's go to the next topic that we're looking at today. I have to go to, where is that? Tutorial guide. Wow, can't believe we began from here. I began learning types, revised this, going to concurrency, went to this, studied each of these. Path parameters, validations, what, all these extra quick parameters, parameter models, return type. We've now finished this. Now we're going to status code. Okay. Actually, tomorrow I hope I get time. If possible, in the morning I want to have a stream. So one stream in the morning, one in the evening, if possible, so that I deal with form data and form models in the evening, request files, and then maybe request files and forms. Then on Monday, go to handling errors. Yeah, can't wait to see how far I go with this. Actually, I'll have to finish it. That's how determined I am. So let me go to response status code. All right, so they're saying the same way you can specify a response model, you can also declare the HTTP status code for the response with the parameter status code in any of the path operations. Okay, up.get, up.post, up.put, up.delete, among others. And here what we have up.get. So I guess they're saying we can do this. You can say status code equals 200. But I think it wouldn't be smart to hard code it. But let me read on to see. So you're saying in Python 3.8 and above, okay, they can say, you can say status code equals to 201, okay, which is for created. Then let's read this. They're saying, note that status code is a parameter of the decorator method, get, post, etc., not of your path operation function, like all the parameters and body. Yeah, so it is a parameter of the path operation decorator, this update post, but it's not of create item. That is what they're trying to say. Then they're saying the status code parameter receives a number with the HTTP status code. Okay, so they're saying info status code can alternatively also receive an int enum, such as Python's HTTP the status. Okay, you don't need to open this. Okay, then they're saying it will return the status code in the response, document it as such in the Open API schema, and so in the user interfaces. Okay, let's find out. Let's prove. Okay, so you see it is 200. If I change it to 2, 01 and save, and come here, you see we get 201. Awesome. So I'll continue. Okay, so they're just showing the same thing. They're saying some response codes, see the next section, indicate that the response does not have a body. Okay, so sometimes you can return a response without no body. They're saying FastAPI knows this and will produce open API docs that state there's no response body. Yeah, this is good. So they're saying about HTTP status codes. If you already know what HTTP status codes are, skip to the next section. Okay, but yeah, actually I also know about them, but you who is watching with me and learning with me, you may not know about them. So let's continue. Because I'm guessing many of you here might be backend engineers, but you just want to learn FastAPI to use it for backend development, just like I'm doing. Learning FastAPI to use it for backend development, but I'm already a backend developer. So in HTTP, you send a numeric status code of 3 digits as part of the response. These status codes have a name associated to recognize them, but the most important part is the number. So there are 3. So in short, they're saying from 100 to 109 are for information. You rarely use them directly. Responses with these status codes cannot have a body. You're just giving information, so you're not returning data. But this is a common interview question. If you didn't know about this, take note right now. Then you have from 200 to 299. So all codes in the range of 100 are informational. All codes in the range of 200 are for successful responses. These are the ones you would use the most. So saying 200 is a default status code, which means everything was okay. Another example would be 201, which means created. It is commonly used after creating a new record in the database, like we're going to see very soon. Special case is 204, no content. This response is used when there's no content to return to the client. And so the response must not have a body. An example, like maybe when you're deleting, okay, after the delete operation, you can return a 204. Next is the codes in the range of 300, okay? 300 to 399 are for redirection. They're saying responses with these status codes may or may not have a body except for 304 not modified, which must have one. Okay. This is the first time learning about 304. Then there are those in the range of 400. These are for client error responses. They're saying these are the second type you would probably use the most. An example is 404 for a not found response. I think many of us must have found out about this 404. For generic errors from the client, you can use 400, okay, which means a bad request. Then they're saying 500 to 599, meaning error codes in the range of 500 are for server errors. You almost never use them directly. When something goes wrong at some part in your application code or server, it will automatically return one of these status codes, okay? So for both server codes and the informational codes, it is rare to use them directly. So codes in the range of 100, informational. Codes in the range of 200, successful responses. Codes in the range of 300 are for redirection. Codes in the range of 400 are for client error responses. Codes in the range of 500 are for server errors. Of course, right now you don't have to cram them, but you'll see me when I'll be building the backend. Maybe just to give you a glimpse of it. Where is this? To show you, are you seeing this? So this is in Casa. I've been trying to build, I'm almost done with the major parts of the front end. So the back end is going to be built using FastAPI, and I'll show you this. We shall build it live, and I'll go through these status codes from time and time again. So yeah, the front end is done, and it's working, okay, pretty well. So let's go back to studying, okay, to finishing. So I'll show you these status codes and how to apply them in a specific part. And of course, if I do something wrong, you guys, I know many of you who are watching are already probably backend engineers. You'll correct me. So let's go ahead. They're saying tip. To know more about each status code and which code is for what, check the MDN documentation about status codes. Yeah, but actually, if you're interested, please do. But yeah, I already know about this, so I won't go into that. So they're saying shortcut, remember the names. They're saying see the previous example again. Okay. Status code equals 200, same thing. They're saying 201 is the status code for created. They're saying, but you don't have to memorize what each part of these codes mean. If you can use the convenience, variables from FastAPI.status. So import status from FastAPI. Okay, then you can say status.http 201 created. No need to cram. In the sense, they are just a convenience. They hold the number. That way you can use the editor's autocomplete to find them. Yeah, that's nice. So which means I can come here and say import status. Okay. Then come here and say status code equals to status dot. There we are. We have all of them. There's 200. Okay. 201. They go into 300s, etc. Okay. So for example, I can put created. Okay. That is it. Just like that. And this is an enum holding the value. Nice. Put this on the next line. I hope the code is clear enough and you can see it. Let me look at the screen. Yeah. Okay. I'm really enjoying learning the things live. Technical details. They're saying you can also use from starlet import status. They're saying FastAPI provides the same starlet.status as FastAPI.status, just as a convenience for you, the developer, but it comes directly from starlet. Okay. We have starlet here. Let us try. From starlet import status. Okay. So if we come here, you can say, I can remove this other one. Okay. You see, we have the same thing. Status dot 20. Okay. Same thing. Okay. So all we can say, comma, status. We use that. And if I remove this, okay, and click and go to its implementation, I want to see, okay, you can see these are just constants. They have all of them here. I'm sure even you know you can create this file. Imagine if maybe accidentally something happened in the FastAPI code base and they lost this their module called status.py. Can't you create this file? Look at the constants. These are just constants, Python constants. So they're saying changing the default. So they're saying later in the advanced user guide, you will see how to return a different status code than the default you're declaring. Let me see what's the next topic we are studying tomorrow. Can I do it now? From that, oh, let me not go there. I don't mix topics, okay? So tomorrow, just look out for a post on this YouTube channel, okay, for the time for the morning session. Most likely I might have a morning session to talk about form data and form models. If I don't have it, then I'll do it in the evening, okay? But I'm curious. Let me go into this advanced calendar and I see what is here. Saying advanced, okay? But it's even short. You didn't even find there's nothing doing advanced here. So you're saying response change status code. You probably read before that you can set a default response status code. Yes, and we read it from here. Okay, we just read it from this statement. Okay, so you're saying, but in some cases, you need to return a different status code than the default. So they're explaining a use case. They're saying, for example, imagine that you want to return an HTTP status code of OK 200 by default. But if the data didn't exist, you want to create it and return an HTTP status code of 200 created. So if data did not exist, you want 200. Then they're saying, but you still want to be able to filter and convert the data you return with the response model. For those cases, you can use a response parameter. They're saying use a response parameter. You can declare a parameter of type response in your path operation function as you can do for cookies and headers. Then you can set the status code in that temporal response object. So it's the imported response from FastAPI, in addition to FastAPI and status that we already know of. Then you see, this response is response, okay? Then the status code is 200, okay? So they're saying if task ID not in tasks, response to status code equals to this, okay? So the default is this in the path operation decorator. Take note of that. The default is in the path decorator from what they have explained above here, okay? But then if we want to change it, we use simply this response object. This is what we've done. Response equals to that, okay? And I'm trying to think where I could do this, but I'm not seeing it. So they're saying, and then you can return any object you need as you normally would, a dict, a database, etc. And if you declare the response model, it will still be used to filter and convert the object you returned, okay? So they're saying FastAPI will use the temporal response to extract the status code, also cookies and headers, and put them in the final response that contains the value you returned, filtered by any response model. You can also declare response parameter in dependencies and set the status code in them. But keep in mind that the last one to be set will win. Yeah, like you've seen. So this is just the advanced part, but it's not even that advanced like they're saying. It's pretty basic. Okay, so yeah, and I guess probably actually maybe when I'll be building that backend, I will show you one or two things on how to do that. Okay, yeah, but that's it. I'm happy that even in less than an hour, I've been able to learn about the extra models. I've been able to learn about response status code. Okay, so awesome. I really love this. So tomorrow, like I said, look out for I should have a morning session probably from 10 p.m. East African time to 11 p.m. East African time, or to even 12 p.m. East African time. But from 10 p.m., 11 p.m., 12 p.m. around that time. Okay, we can have 2 hours. Okay, or 1 hour. I feel like is it possible to have 2 hours? Probably. Because if I do 2 hours, that means we can study 4 things. 1, 2, 3, 4. And get done with them. Then the evening go to 1, 2. But let's see how it goes. Okay. I don't want to force. The morning I can learn about these 2. Evening I learn about the next 2. Monday like that. Yeah, because we're getting closer. What I'm really waiting for is this part here. SQL databases. Because most powerful applications in the database. Here, databases. I can't wait for databases. And also security. I can't wait for security. And maybe middleware a little bit. And background tasks. So databases, security, background tasks. Static files, I really don't care. Maybe for like email, but not really, because I'm going to use React, Next.js for the front end. Then maybe debugging. Yeah, people underestimate debugging, but it's really important. So let's meet tomorrow as we look at form data and models. So this should happen in the morning session. Then the evening, we look at request files and then request forms and files. So again, thank you for joining me on this learning journey of mine. You can subscribe to get alerts, or share this with others. So we grow a community where we learn things with using Python and build stuff. So the goal of me doing this is to learn in public, learn with you, and then build something. Okay, it's really useful. Okay, something that I can consider my own startup, and you can also use on your projects or whatever. So yeah, thank you for watching and learning with me. Bye bye.